Welcome back to The Small Nonprofit, the podcast where your passion meets action. Hello, welcome back to the Small Nonprofit podcast. And if it's your first time, welcome. We're happy to have you. Today I'm sitting with Heather Nelson, master of all things corporate, and I'm really excited for Heather to share her feedback, her insight into how you can be doing corporate partnership building a little bit better. So hi, Heather.
Hi, I'm so pleased to be here, Maria. And thanks for the compliment. But I have so many props for you and how you talk about corporate partnership too. So I'm really hoping we're going to come up with ideas and share ideas together with all our listeners.
Super excited. Okay, so can you quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. So you've already mentioned that corporate partnerships is my thing. I'm the founder of a company called BridgeRaise. We're a consulting firm that focuses exclusively on working with nonprofits and charities on their corporate partnerships. I have been in the nonprofit sector pretty much my whole career. I did start in programming and move to fundraising, but I've been in the fundraising and corporate partnership specific space for over 15 years. And so I've seen it all. There's nothing that surprises me anymore in this space. And I love sharing with people who have lots of experience and vibing and getting new ideas from each other, and also people who are new to the sector and just talking to them about how they can find their way.
I didn't know you started in programming. That's so fun.
I did. Yes. And then I just moved. I thought I was doing a lot of traveling with it in the part of the program work I was doing, and I wanted to be more settled in one place at a certain point. And then there was just so many jobs, and I loved meeting people and meeting funders. So it was like a natural move on over. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That must have been a short part because from the whole time that I've known you, you've always been in corporate. So
Yeah. A few years, but I have been in corporate for quite some time now, and it is my happy place for sure.
what do you see is the problem that causes some nonprofits to not form those corporate connections? So what holds them back when they're trying to build those corporate relationships and asks?
There's a lot of different things, honestly, that hold people back. I think one of them is really falling into a very passive approach, right? Like, how can I do this without really engaging in the relationship side? So maybe that's from a place of fear. Maybe that's a place of that they're not comfortable, or there's too much they don't know about the company. So they're trying to do a very passive, like, if I just fill out the thing, or if I just send an email with all the information, I don't really have to have a deep conversation. And you know what? It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. So I think that's one of the things that holds people back. Sometimes, like, following other people's strategies holds people back, right? Like, what works for one organization, it may not be the right thing for the other ones. That you have to think about it in your own context. Also, taking on too much at a time, especially I'm assuming, obviously, we're talking to small nonprofits. You know what? You don't have to start with a pre-researched list of 100 companies. Let's narrow that baby down to a shorter list to get started. And we're always like, let's just start with a few. Let's start with a few that really make sense and go from there. So those are a few things that I think get people at the beginning.
I feel like another one that I would love your insight on would be sometimes nonprofits feel like, oh, how would I ever talk to this big brand? I don't even know where to start. It's just like this brand that doesn't care about me, tiny little nonprofit, and they just get stuck there as well. So I wonder if you have like an approach that you would recommend for small nonprofits to take other than just filling out a form on their website.
Yeah, it's true. I think a really dangerous position to start from is that the company knows everything and you don't know anything, or the company has lots of things to give you and you have nothing to give them. If you start with that as a starting point, it really can't go from there. So one of the things that we do to get started with organizations, and I really encourage people to do this, is start with describing what it is what a successful corporate partnership would look like. Write down what you would like it to be. I would like to have an open, transparent conversation. I would like to know what the company wants. I'd like them to really understand what we do and what's important to us. Write it down, because you can't really achieve something that you can't even describe. So we start there. We're like, describe it. Let's start with what would it look like if it was successful? The other thing we ask people to do is describe the values, the core values that you want to exist in your organization and in your partnerships. So many organizations, or at least some, have got that at the organizational level, but then it's a little bit different when you think about it specifically in relationship to partnerships. So we ask them that. Think about it. What would be core things? What would lead you to walk away? What could happen in a conversation? You say, you know what? This isn't for me. This isn't for my organization. So we get people to get a little bit clear on that before we get started, because then we're driving towards something that we can recognize if it happens, and we can also recognize if it's not happening. So that's number one. And then that gives us a really great platform to start saying, okay, now we want to have conversations that fit this. We want them to be respectful. We want them to value the exchange. And we see each other as equal participants in this partnership that we're going to try to create. And then the next thing we do, which comes up a little bit to your question, is this value piece. Like, the company has money. In most cases, that's what the charity wants. Maybe they have volunteers. Maybe they have also the ability to amplify the message. So they have these things, and this is what most of us want access to at the charity side. We need to know what we have on our side, what it is that we're doing. So be very clear on the impact you're having and be able to explain it in a brief and concise way. But you may also have opportunities like employee engagement or volunteerism that you can offer, like these things that the company wants too. So you need to know what those are, so that then you get into the conversation and it's more about, we both have stuff that we're bringing to the table, and now let's figure out what it looks like to be beneficial for both of us.
And do you find that corporates are more interested in that employee engagement piece, or just general marketing kind of that they could get from the nonprofit, or just take the money, do the good stuff, and let's talk later?
You know what? We can't put everybody in the same bucket, right? There are companies who have made significant commitments to seeing a certain change in the world. They're driven by a purpose. And if your organization is also driven by that same purpose, then perhaps your alignment and the work you're going to do together is to make that change in the world. And there are organizations, and certainly right now, a lot of organizations, I'm not going to diminish this as an important thing, who are looking for ways for their employees to be engaged in volunteerism. There's tons of benefits for the companies of that. So there's many companies that are looking for that. And no question, that can be a driver of the relationship between a company and a charity. And then there's others that may be looking for marketing. And one of the mistakes we can get into at the charitable organization is not finding out which one we're talking to. All of a sudden, we're offering all this marketing, and the organization really is mostly interested in you really having the impact that they want to be a part of. If what they really want is employee engagement, then let's not be talking about the marketing. Like, we need to know. And in some cases, maybe they want a little bit of all the things. And so what does that look like? But that's where not starting with, here's everything, and starting with, let's be clear on what you need and want and give you that thing, can really help an organization not get in a situation of overwhelm where they're trying to do all kinds of things without really knowing why they're doing them, or if the company even values it at all. That doesn't feel good.
I recently worked with two different organizations trying to position some of the stuff that they have access to as an employee volunteer, employee engagement piece. But one of the pieces that I was getting stuck on was actually the pricing. So what is this kind of like worth to me? Like, how big of a pain in the butt is it? And and what is this worth to the company? So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about how you approach that.
Yeah, and it's definitely important. We sometimes put things on a little chart where we make it an X and put like easy and expensive, and hard and expensive, and easy and not. Like, on this grid to start to try to get that figured out a little bit, because it is important when you're setting up a program like an employee volunteer program, employee engagement program, or really any benefit to a company, that, if you're delivering it for them, then it makes sense from a value perspective on your side. If it's really hard and it's going to take a lot of work, then the cost needs to be higher. If it's not, and if the cost is really high and they don't really value it, then what's the point? There is that internal assessment piece that you should do. And then the question really is, what is the possible amount of money? And to me, there's a lot of variables that go into that. But one of them is, this only an employee engagement exercise? The company is not aligned in other ways with your organization. They're just asking for that activity. If that's the case, obviously the price point is lower. And what we look at for trying to estimate price point for that is what other types of team building activities they could do in replacement of that. Because really, at that point, it's really just a team building activity they're investing in. If then we go into something that is providing leadership skills, and it's a board position or an active campaign role that the employees are getting, then it's more like a professional development opportunity. So then we might price it based on what would be similar professional development, coaching opportunities that they would go into, or courses that they would take. And then the best case scenario, and the scenario that I really encourage organizations as much as possible to do, is to get away from these ones that are more transactional and put their employee engagement within a bigger partnership, right? In that case, we're not actually costing out this one thing. We're talking about a company that is committed to the purpose or your mission. And as part of that, they want their employees to be engaged with your organization and learn more about your organization. And at that point, then we're talking about a partnership agreement. And those really depend on so many factors, including like the size of your organization and the size of the company you're talking to and that kind of thing. But at that point, it's less transactional. It's more multifaceted. It's definitely what I encourage people to be thinking of as one piece of a puzzle. And for some companies, for some charities, if you don't have a lot of employee engagement opportunities, I would say only offer them in the context of this bigger partnership, because those are going to be the best partnerships for you. As we want to have partnerships that are values aligned, where the companies care about our mission, those are the ones that are most likely to turn into very respectful exchanges between the company and the charity. If all of that is there, you can be the organization that saves those employee engagement opportunities for those companies exclusively, and saves yourself a lot of noise and activity that just isn't really worth it in the long run.
There's so many there's so many different things about corporate giving that we could dive into. And I know that we're lightly touching upon the approaches an organization can take and some of the things that corporates are looking for. One of the things that I feel I haven't been able to nail down is the employee giving piece. Organizations actually will match a gift made by their employees to whichever partner or organizations they work with. Do you have much experience with that?
We have some experience with it. And I will say it really is like one of these things where you have to tackle it from multiple different angles. And that's, I think, what makes it really hard. For some organizations, for some companies, there's a platform that they're using. And so then you're like trying to update the platform, but you're also trying to look for opportunities to make sure the employees are asked. And then you're also trying to let them know that the matching exists, and the company needs to communicate that, and you're trying to communicate that. And so it really is one of these things that I think the reason it is hard to be successful at it is because you have to tackle it from all these different angles, which is time consuming and requires a lot of different tactics. And is it doable? Yes, it's doable. And should small organizations look for different ways to seed that idea on the corporate side and with the individuals who come into their organizations? Absolutely. Also, give yourself grace. If you're not getting this 100%, don't feel bad. I think it's very common. And it is common because it's handled so differently at every organization. And there's so many different touch points that are required for it to like fully work, that I think it's one of those things it's ripe for things to not go totally smoothly. Yeah, because you just really need a lot of things to happen in order for it to work out.
Yeah, that's right. I wasn't thinking of all the other pieces that come along with something like that. Okay, so let's say I'm a nonprofit and I don't have a relationship with this corporate that I think would be values aligned. Maybe you could give me a story or an example of where you saw there be no relationship and then forming the relationship and what that looked like for that organization.
Sure. There's so many examples of this happening, and honestly, probably as many examples. Each one's a little bit different. But so first of all, starting with that assumption that it's values aligned, my number one recommendation is to figure out like the shortest way of you describing that. For example, we have a youth organization that we work with. They help with employment strategies, preparing youth for employment. There was an organization that they wanted to partner with, and it was very clear that this organization was trying to get more people to be aware of jobs in STEM and tech. The one sentence was specifically pulling out a little bit about that program initiative that this youth organization does and that STEM and tech idea. I will say the danger on the side of the youth organization was to try to tell the organization that just wants employment in tech all the other things they do as well. We see this all the time, like a paragraph, we do all these things, and the charity knows that's the one alignment point, but they still decide to tell everything. So we really encouraged this very short, just tell them this thing, a sentence about credibility, and try to put a little bit about the offer into the email and get the call going. And number one, that took several email follow-ups to the person. And eventually we got a call. The call went really well. The first call was a lot of questions, almost a getting to know you call. We've all had them. The organization did not have a deck, did not pitch a thing. They just talked to them. And we had given them a bunch of questions. We're like, ask these questions and just make it a really rich conversation. And they came back. They were so excited. And the next call, the person they spoke to invited 2 more people. This is like the best news ever, right? More people is always better. You never know who's going to move where, and they're already creating buy-in on their corporate side. And so that next one, we had a few slides to share, a few ideas to get their feedback on. And then that led to the next one where the proposal was put forward. I'll be honest, then there was a long wait. This is where everybody panicked. So they didn't get back to me right away. No, there was a long wait. We had to send a few follow-ups, a check-in here and there. And then they finally came through and said, okay, this is what we're doing. We're so excited. Let's start. And so the timeline that for all of that was probably like 6-7 months. And that is even on the short side. So that was a pretty like successful scenario, and it was probably on the short side. So just for everyone to think, there's a lot of points along the way of a journey like that where people are tempted to give up or tempted to think they did something wrong or get down on themselves about it. And it was all just how it was meant to be. Like there's conversations going on that you're not privy to. There's other priorities going on in the business that have nothing to do with your proposal at all, and it's just a journey. So you just have to stay with it and see it through. And sometimes that does take 6-9 months, 12 months. It can take all kinds of time. It takes multiple meetings, and that's where you need to make the decision: is the amount that we're talking about, and is this partnership make sense enough for that? And that's always an important decision. I don't think that if we tested that idea and they were talking very small amounts of money, then it would have been worth all the effort that we put in. But they were talking about enough that it made sense for this organization. That kind of journey just is the common way it goes. Sometimes I do love to encourage people to get out. So that one actually did start by email, but I have a lot of examples where the first point of contact is a board of trade meeting, is a conference, is a something. So corporate fundraisers need to get out of their offices and go to places where corporate representatives are, because sometimes that's the starting point, like a great little coffee chat or a quick meeting at a conference or something, and then you follow up with an email and get on their calendar. And if you can do that, it's so much faster in terms of getting response than if you're totally trying to warm up the relationship purely by email. Always get out there and meet people. That's a good strategy for getting started as well.
I love the things you highlighted. Be persistent, right? You can't just send an email into the nothingness and then never follow up and not try anything past that because I feel people are like, "Oh, RBC didn't answer me."
The number of times I've heard I don't want to bother them. I'm like, they'll tell you somehow if you're really bothering them. And I think as long as you're respectful and informative in your communication, you're allowed to follow up. You're allowed. And with email, it's so easy for it to get lost too. I've lost emails, like just happens. We have to acknowledge that.
And it's so easy to assume, "Oh, they don't want to hear from me X, Y, and Z." But I have this example with a major donor that we emailed for 8 months trying to get a meeting with her because, like, your gift renewal day is coming up and you're very hard to get a hold of. And she went to my board chair and she's, "I haven't heard from anyone. No one has talked to me in a year." And we're like, "Here are all the emails." Maybe because they had it was on the same thread. Like, who knows? Like, she just didn't see it and she felt, "Oh, how come they didn't reach out?" So don't assume you're bothering people because they might just not read your email.
I have a funny example too. One of our clients has an annual event, and we communicate with the companies at other times, as you should. But there is a bit of an ask cycle related to this event. So we did last year to the 2023 version, and they didn't answer, they didn't engage with us. They had been a funder in 22. We heard nothing. We sent them all these things, like multiple follow-ups. We even sent them the rack report on the event. This is the awesomeness that happened. Maybe you'll get in touch with us next year. We sent out the early email for this year and they didn't answer. So we were like, okay, now it's been like over a year of them not responding to anything. We'll just put them in the very slow nurture thing. We're not going to follow up that much. We've got other priorities. Fast forward 2 months later, we get an email from them. "Hey, we saw that such and such, the event is coming up. You've set the date. How come no one has reached out to us? We want to sponsor it." And I was just like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? It has been 18 months of like radio silence. I don't even know how many emails were sent in that time, but like more than one. And we were just like, thank you. Good to hear from you, right? Let's go. The number of times that we thought to ourselves, clearly they're not interested. Clearly we're bothering. It just wasn't on there, that what they weren't thinking about it. And then when they got to the point where like, oh, we're thinking about this, then it was like, oh, now's the moment that we want the email to pop in our box today. And we didn't hit that day. I think it's true until someone has really acknowledged that there's not a fit, which happens. And there's times where, it doesn't make sense for the company and they tell you that. I think you have to assume that repeated follow-up is appropriate as long as it fits with the amount of time you're willing to spend on things. Like to my point, there was a point where I said, you know what, this one isn't important enough for a lot of effort. We've got other things. And on some, we do encourage people to do that. You have to prioritize. You can't always manage a huge list. You can let some people go in the name of others that fit better, but not too quickly.
One of the other things that comes to mind for me when, oh, they might not read your email, but also the point person might leave. So that's another concern. Let's say you only know one point person and you weren't lucky enough that three people were introduced to you. Wait, what do you do then? That person's gone. How do you maintain that relationship?
Yeah, that is, it's such a bummer when that happens. Like it really is not a good thing. So we do talk about this right from the start, that right from the start, you are really actively trying to get more than one person involved. This is, especially if it's a bigger arrangement, it's really important for you to think about, how can I copy somebody else? How can I just make sure, even if more than one person isn't on the actual meeting itself, how can somebody else be in the loop? And sometimes that takes even talking to your contact about that. Again, back to, I really think that if you're thinking of yourself in this situation of partnership and a value exchange, then it's fair to say, you know what, it sometimes happens that people move into different roles, or I'd like to make sure somebody else is aware. Could we invite them? Could I copy them? You can ask those kind of questions. Similarly, that's why employee volunteerism and engagement is really such a high value activity with your bigger partners. It's good for you to have relationships with more than one person. So being proactive about this is by far the best strategy. Be thinking about it when you're getting started. However, if you don't, I've done everything from, if the person is still in the organization, following up with them and asking for a warm introduction to somebody. I've also gone on to LinkedIn when they've moved to a new organization and LinkedIn and asked them, who should I reach out to? If you have a positive relationship with the person and you're a charity that they have been working with, they probably want it to work out. Honestly, so much of the time, the contact will actually let and give you some advice on their way out. That's really the scenario that I've seen the most often, because the people who are working on the charitable partnerships for companies, they want these things to be, they want it to be successful. They want it to work out. They want it to be good. Whenever I hear on the charitable side, people speaking about the corporate representatives as if they're purposely trying to make this difficult or not work out, I'm so disappointed, because in my experience, that's usually not the case. It usually, like, is there exceptions? Of course, we've all got a few exceptions, but for the vast majority, the people that are working on this part of the corporate work are really great people. They want it to work out. And if you tell them your concerns, if you tell them how things aren't working for you, they're open to figuring that out. And I find that more often the problem is that the charity doesn't let them know, this isn't working for me, or this is what's really difficult, or things are more complex than we expected. Things went this way instead of this way. How can we work this out? And the charity doesn't let them know that, and therefore they can't adjust. And then the charity's like, hey, they're so not flexible. I'm like, did you just explain what was going on? Because maybe if you'd given them the opportunity to support you through this, they would have, you know?
It's so funny. We have these like thoughts around like major donors are like this, corporate donors are like this, foundations are like this. And most of the time, once you start really fundraising that portfolio, you realize that was nonsense.
Yeah, I think it's just they're the classic, like, one, whatever, rotten apple, the whole bunch. We can all come up with or have heard of an example that isn't very good. Many of us have probably lived one or two, but that's the fun story, and those are cool examples, but that's not the vast majority of what's going on. But of course, that's the fun story to tell. So I think that's a bit what happens. And less often is the example of the person who's leaving their role and calls you and gives you the inside scoop of what you should do next, which has happened so many times, or who brings the person in because they know they're leaving and they help you through that transition. And there's all these examples that I've experienced, and now you've experienced as well, or when you're super honest about what went wrong and they're like, okay, then how can we help you? Or how can we adjust the metric or extend the things, extend the date or whatever? These are all things that happen all the time. And if you give the partner the chance, the company the chance, then they can show up that way. So I think, yeah, that's how I like to think of it.
Yeah, building a true partnership with them and acknowledging that they also care about what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just for the listeners, I feel like one of the questions that I would have would be, how can I get my organization like corporate ready, right? Each portfolio requires a base to build upon. What is the base for corporate?
Yeah. So some of the things we talked about before, know what a successful corporate partnership looks like, what you want it to look like. I think you need to know what things you're willing to offer a company for funding, for employee engagement. Like, you have to have a bit of a sense of that. And there may be things that you don't want the company to fund or have anything to do with. We definitely work with organizations that have a research arm, and they're like, that's an area that we just don't feel corporate should have any role, or they may have a specific initiative where it doesn't make sense. You have to have a bit of a idea of that, and whether that's in an Excel spreadsheet or written down on a Google Doc, it doesn't have to be like super fancy or anything, but you need to have that. And then I like you to have some document that describes your organization. I call it a pitch deck, but like something that describes your organization and what you're willing to offer in a fairly concise and visual way. We don't necessarily use that to do a presentation, but it just keeps everything together in one place. And sometimes it's a follow-up document. So that, and then, as I said at the beginning, a really short list of companies to get started with, right? Let's start with a few companies, do enough research to find the alignment points, to get the name and contact of the person you should reach out with, and get started. Start having some conversations. And then based on that, you'll probably adjust what the things are that you're going to offer. You may adjust some of your work, but you'll start building relationships, building knowledge. One of the key things I tell people all the time is I'll get asked, oh, what's the perfect price, or what's the perfect package, or what's the perfect thing? And to me, it's the thing that you're going to go out and start talking about, because there is no 100% right price point, 100% right offer until you're working with somebody on it, and you need more information. So we're not going to get that information behind our computers. We're going to get it by having conversations with the companies or the businesses. If you're a smaller charity and you're talking to local businesses, like until you're talking to those people, you're not going to know the answers to the questions. We're just making assumptions about what they want or think, and that is not helpful. So write down enough and then go talk to people about it.
Get it done. Yeah.
Yes.
Heather, if people want to continue the conversation and learn more about corporate, how can they get in touch with you?
So my website, bridgeraise.com. I'm going to also, in your show notes, give a link to a specific little workbook that gives some questions on this sort of, what does success look like? What are some of the starting points? So that might be a tool that some of your listeners could use. I'm also super active on LinkedIn. Under my name, it actually look up Nelson Heather. That's how it pops up. We'll put the link in the show notes, I'm sure, for that too. But I love sharing content there. I love engaging. People can ask me questions there. I will answer. I'm there myself. It's not somebody else. So join me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to hear from you.
Nice. So I'll link both of those down below. But Heather, thank you so much for joining me today. This was so helpful. I think corporate can seem very scary and nebulous and obscure. So really, thank you so much for sharing your insight and making it clearer for everyone who's listening.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
And thank you all for joining for this episode of the Small Nonprofit Podcast. I'll have Heather's links down in the show notes. But as always, if you want to see our lovely faces, you can check us out on YouTube. That's it for today. Thank you again for tuning in, and bye for now. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Small Nonprofit. If you want to continue the conversation, feel free to connect with our guests directly or find me on LinkedIn. Let's keep moving money to mission and prioritizing our well-being. Bye for now.